So you suffer from headaches. Okay, maybe you want to do the ketogenic diet, but you're afraid that the ketogenic diet might make your headaches worse. Or maybe you're afraid just in general that if you start keto, you'll start to get headaches. Well, the purpose of this video is to break down what's happening with a headache and then teach you how the ketogenic diet can work to improve headaches and migraines, but more importantly, teach you some different things that you can weave into your dietary patterns to make sure that you don't end up suffering from migraines or headaches, or at least just end up a little bit ahead of the curve. You see, headaches are not as simple as we think they are. A lot of times we think, oh, it's just the weather. Oh, it's our hormones. Oh, it's the bright light. Oh, it's too much time in front of the TV. It's dehydration. The thing is, it's not that simple. There's some other common denominators, and we're going to talk about them. And taking research and taking science from some of the greatest minds at Oxford University in Switzerland, we've really been able to compile some great evidence that shows what is happening inside your body so that you can live the best possible life. Hey, make sure you hit that red subscribe button and then go ahead and hit that little bell icon down below in the box there. And then after you hit that bell icon, you're going to turn on notifications so that you can watch my videos whenever they go live or whenever I post up any new video at all. I also want to make sure that you check out Thrive Market down below in the description after you watch this video. If you're looking to try keto or you're already doing it or you do intermittent fasting or anything like that, you're obviously going to need groceries. Well, Thrive Market's an online grocery store and I work closely with them to create specific grocery bundles, fasting bundles, keto bundles, things like that, so you can get groceries that I would recommend. So all you have to do is after this video, just click on that little link that you see down below in the description and you'll be able to check them out. Now, let's get to some headache science. So there's some interesting stuff that came out in the Nature Reviews Neurology. Okay, now this was all about how the body really processes headaches, like what's actually going on and how ketones might play a role. Well, what it's discovered is that headaches are really more of an evolutionary adaptive metabolic response. Now what that means is that much like a fever, okay, so let me explain it like this. When you get a headache, your brain is responding to something. Your head is responding to some kind of stressor, whether it's poor energy metabolism, whether it's too much metabolic waste, anything like that. The headache is a response, and your brain is getting stronger or dealing with it. If you think of it compared to an infection, it makes sense, right? You get an infection, so you get a fever. Okay, the fever sucks. It's not fun to have a fever, but you know that the fever is doing something good inside your body. The fever is killing off, the virus, the bacteria, right? Okay, but when it comes down to a headache, you're getting that pain, that headache, because your body is trying to adapt. So it's an evolutionary adaptive thing. It's hard to think of it like that. You can almost think of a headache as somewhat of a good thing. It's your body's response, just like a fever. So in order for all of this to make sense, we have to take a look at some evidence. Okay, we have to understand what's going on and why this is the case and why we firmly believe that it's not just some random thing. The first thing that we have to look at is all of these known triggers for headaches, things like the weather, things like the heat, dehydration, blue light, all these things. All these triggers all have a common denominator. Okay, that common denominator is mitochondrial energy. Everything we look at, the weather, our hormones, all that stuff affects how our mitochondria produces energy. So when we say that migraines are caused by X, Y, Z, it's really caused by the mitochondrial energy issue that is ultimately caused by multiple different variants, right? But if we get down to the root of it, we know that it's how energy is metabolized. Weather affects how energy is metabolized, hormones affect how energy is metabolized, dehydration, and so on and so on. Every single known trigger. So what we have here is what is called a common metabolic denominator. This is what is ultimately causing the migraine. So now we can expand a little bit further. There was one study that took a look at a specific kind of MRI that looked at ATP in the brain. Now what ATP is the energy currency. It's how we measure how a cell is processing energy. ATP is what literally creates energy. So this type of study, this type of scan was able to look at how energy was being used in the brain. And they saw that those people that suffered from migraines had on average 16% less ATP. So they were producing 16% less energy if they had migraines. And there was a linear equivalent there. So as they had more severe migraines, they had less ATP. And vice versa. If they had a little bit less of a drop of ATP, their migraines weren't as bad. So this inverse correlation there shows us that when the brain isn't producing good energy, they ended up with a migraine. Now another kind of scan and another study showed that there was also too much glucose going to specific areas of the brain. So again, it balances out that we have sort of this imbalance of energy metabolism, right? We have energy that's not being utilized and we have potential energy sitting there. Too much glucose, but then not enough of it actually being converted. So this causes an issue in and of itself. And then the other important piece is there was a significant reduction in the activity of what's called superoxide dismutase. This is like the main component when it comes down to fighting reactive oxygen species, especially in the brain. So whenever we produce energy, we have cellular waste. And the cellular waste is a totally normal thing, but our body also has a normal ability to process it. Well, in those that were suffering from migraines, they had less of an ability to deal with it. Well, this still, again, has to do with mitochondrial efficiency, because the mitochondria is still all about energy metabolism and to some degree, some waste metabolism. But most importantly, what's been discovered is that glucose activity decreases in the brain when there's a migraine, but ketone activity upregulates. So what that's telling us is that our brain is doing its best job to find an alternative energy source that's going to get it more energy. It realizes at this point that it's having a hard time processing glucose, and it's doing so inefficiently. So therefore, it upregulates ketone utilization. This here is our proof that ketones are optimal when we have a headache, because our body is starving for them. It's basically saying, glucose isn't working, we're having an issue, so let's go ahead and get ketones. So the short answer here, right here, is that if you are already on a ketogenic diet, you will probably have less instances of migraines. Now, I've talked to literally hundreds of people that have said the ketogenic diet has helped their migraines. But that might not be enough for some people, so I'd like to be able to justify it more. Now, as this video goes on, I'm going to explain what you can do with your diet to make it a little bit more effective, and what you can do in the way of supplementation. But let's talk a little bit more about this Nature Reviews neurology review that took a look at ketones specifically for migraines. So they found in one particular study that took a look at 96 patients for 1 month, patients that suffered from chronic migraines. Okay, they put them on a ketogenic diet, and they found that their attack frequency, their attack severity, and their use of migraine medication decreased 80% in just 1 month, simply by going on a ketogenic diet, simply by having ketones in the system. Then there was a similar study that took a look at participants, and it found that they had a reduction by 62.5% in the number of days that they had migraines. Okay, so the frequency significantly decreased in a whole entirely separate study. So this is purely telling us and reinforcing once again that we need a different energy source if we suffer from migraines. Okay? You can use the ketogenic diet as a preventative thing for migraines if you're afraid that you're going to get them, but it is ultimately coming down to the fact that this might be the ideal diet if you do suffer from migraines and you're trying to get your life back a little bit. But let's talk what you can do with your keto diet to make it a little bit different. Okay, first and foremost, vitamin B. Okay, we need to be getting lots of vitamin B. So this means if you're not doing it already, I highly recommend consuming some beef liver, consuming some chicken liver. I know it doesn't sound too fun, but it's going to be the best way to actually get it into your system. You can take B vitamin supplements, that's going to help too, but always try to get it from whole foods whenever possible. The whole reason behind this is twofold. One, we need B vitamins for glutathione reproduction. Okay, we need that glutathione in our body to be able to combat reactive oxygen species, combat that waste. The hard part is when we're on keto, we lose these water-soluble vitamins really quick. Okay, we lose them pretty rapidly. So vitamin C, vitamin B, all these that are water soluble, they go through our system really quick because things are moving faster and water's excreting faster, so we just have to make sure that we're replacing them. So take your B vitamins, or at least get some good quality liver in your diet if you can handle that. I know it's not for everybody. The other thing that you want to do is you want to be consuming foods that are high in CoQ10 or taking a coenzyme Q10 supplement. Okay, CoQ10 is a very important carrier in the electron transport chain. What that means is it is super critical for energy to transfer properly into the mitochondria. So whether you are keto or not, you need this CoQ10 to make sure that you have an efficient energy process going on. If you're in keto or on keto, it automatically improves it. Okay, you already have this improvement simply by being in keto, but if you take CoQ10 on top of that, you have this rapid improvement in the amount of energy that can get into the mitochondria. So if with a headache we're dealing with mitochondrial inefficiency, then CoQ10 is going to help tremendously. And if you don't want to take my word for it, there's been 4 separate studies, separate double-blind placebo studies that have found that 300 to 400 milligrams per day of coenzyme Q10 will tremendously help out with migraines. The next one is consuming alpha lipoic acid. So taking 200 to 400 milligrams per day of alpha lipoic acid. So alpha lipoic acid is interesting because it's an antioxidant, but it's both fat and water soluble. So when you take it, the body's able to send it where it needs to go without any real limitations. You see, we have the blood-brain barrier, which makes it pretty hard for a lot of things to get rid of oxidative stress in our brain, and oxidative damage, I should say. But alpha lipoic acid is so interesting because it is water and fat soluble. The body can just say, oh, we need to send it here, and it goes there. We need to send it here, and it goes there. So it can help out with the whole cellular waste piece and at least keep the mitochondria functioning a little bit cleaner. And lastly, you probably should be taking between 400 and 800 milligrams per day of some form of high quality magnesium. I usually recommend a chelated form so that you can actually utilize it and it doesn't affect anything else. I'm a big fan of dimagnesium malate, so 400 to 800 milligrams of magnesium could be very, very powerful simply because magnesium is required to bind to ATP. ATP, again, the energy in our brain, in our body in general, technically should be called MAG-ATP. Okay, because magnesium always binds to ATP to make it active, and without magnesium, ATP doesn't really work. So we should be taking in magnesium, plus it's also going to relax the muscles. So that means sometimes if you get a headache and you start tensing up your neck and everything like that, it ends up making matters worse. Well, magnesium can help relax those muscles and cause kind of a secondary effect that'll help you get rid of your headache. So anyhow, I hope these are some tips that'll help you out with your keto journey. And I hope that now you understand why the ketogenic diet can be so powerful for headaches. It doesn't come down to just the weather and all that stuff. The common denominator is your mitochondria. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel. I'll see you in the next video.